Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Painted in Color podcast. I'm co-host Lauren Brown, joined by co-host Mia Araujo, and today we're going to talk about artist sharing and artist communities and the way the landscape has started to change and shift with how we share our art and how we commune with each other as artists. So it's something that I've been thinking about a lot, actually, because with all the things that are going on, with Meta now scraping our art and us finding new platforms such as Kara and Blue Sky and all these other platforms, we are starting to go inward, I've noticed, and started to share on more personal communities. And I wanted to talk about that and what it looks like to be an artist in this day and age, and how it feels to share our art versus how it felt back then and what it's going to feel like as we go forward. So, hi Mia, how you doing?
I am exhausted, but I am here, and that's all
Oh
that
no.
matters.
I know you've been working very hard. So
Yeah.
I mean, I hope, please take some time to rest. I didn't say this before, but please rest. You are allowed to do that.
Yeah, I am. I just have so much work to do, and it's one of those
Mm.
things where we talk about rest and self-care a lot, but I'm just really not practicing it lately, and yeah, anyway.
I was just talking about not following my own advice. Yeah, but Mia, I know that obviously because you have been working so hard on, on your project, you've been able to share your art, but in your own way. So do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, I share on Patreon. That's pretty much the only place I share what I'm working on, but it's even that I can't share the actual art, and there's certain things I'm not allowed to talk about and things like that. So
Yeah.
I can't. I'm not able to share everything I want to, but I still have to find a way to continue to connect with my audience on there, and that's always challenging. It's kind of like being under NDA, right? Like
Yeah.
you're proving to people that you're still working, but people are actually funding this project, so I have to keep them, either entertained or at least I don't know, proving to them that I am still working on it. So yeah, I tend to somewhat use my Patreon a little bit like a diary of how I'm going through the whole process. And sometimes it feels like you're talking to yourself because it's not quite, Patreon is not quite like social media where people are, if they sort of internalize things, but they don't usually comment or engage very much. And
Yeah.
so it feels weird, especially since they're paying money per month. You always feel like, as the artist, that you're not giving enough. And so you're constantly feeling like, because they're not engaging with it, that you're also not giving enough. So there's definitely that kind of friction with that kind of platform as well, because money is exchanged. And pretty
Yeah.
much no artist that I know feels comfortable with this, by the way, even though like every fan will tell you, oh, we want to support you. You still, as the artist, don't believe it. Like, and feel like you have to do more to prove yourself and stuff. So
Like you
that can
really
be
like
kind of
have to
hard.
like put it on to be able to deserve and earn their support and their money.
Yeah. But also because social media has conditioned us to believe that we have to entertain our followings or our audiences for free. So it's like,
Yeah.
in a way, we're saying, how is this different from what I do on social media? I have to ratchet up somehow or add more value because I'm daring to ask for money when technically it shouldn't have been free in the first place, right? But that's a whole nother thing.
Oh yeah. And also everybody who is in your Patreon is there willingly. No
Yeah.
one forced them to be there. They
Yeah.
actively subscribed to the Patreon and like took great pains to like put their information in and like made sure because like they literally wanted to support you as an artist. And that is a very conscious decision to make. So it's like, even though like it does feel a little bit weird to like be getting paid for like sharing your art, it truly is like it's true support because they're literally showing that they want you here with their wallet. And I know that there's many other ways to support an artist and there's many other ways to show that support, but Patreon is like, it's like kind of going the extra mile to be like, I want you to keep creating, so
Mhm.
I'm going to literally pay for you so that you're comfortable enough to keep creating. And I think that is a warm neighborly thing to do. I really appreciate that
Yeah.
from everybody who is like, my patrons. And I'm terrible with Patreon. Like I can't promote it right now in good conscience because I haven't updated it like, consistently enough. And I'm not good at Patreon right now. I'm just too busy. But there's still people supporting me. And it's not the posts that matter. It's just the fact that they are able to support me
Yeah.
that is what matters. So I'm trying not to feel guilty about that either because I'm like, I know that they're there
Yeah.
through their own will and they want to be there. So I'm trying not to feel bad about it, but like I know that yeah, also when I do share posts and when I work really hard on it, I'm not getting that same kind of feedback because like the audience is there to appreciate it, but they're not necessarily there to give a bunch of feedback.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be as robust as a social media audience,
Yeah.
so it is going to feel a little bit weird. So yeah, it's interesting, but you do get to make your own world out of Patreon, which I do
Yeah.
like.
Yeah.
It's a space that you solely get to control,
Yeah.
and you don't really get that to do that in that many other places, I don't think.
Yeah, no, and I think that's what I love the most about it. It's like I felt like I live in my sketchbooks more than I finish paintings, and I noticed that social media, like Instagram or Facebook, tends to respond more to finished work. Um,
Yeah,
and so I realized that actually Patreon is really great for sharing the process. That's like what they're dying to see, is like the stuff that no one else gets to see. So it feels very special in that way. And um, I guess like I have gotten to used to it now, even though I've had these feelings about it. I just feel like I have anytime I make a change where it's like if I used to post every week, which that was back in the day, and then I went down to twice a month, I would actually just let them know, say this is what I'm doing now. And most
yeah,
of the time when you make changes, your fans for the most part are okay with it. It's just you just communicate that with them, like with how the expectations might change a little bit, and it's just very chill and very like you said, you get to design it yourself and you get to it's very empowering to be like, well, this phase of my life, I'm actually not going to be able to update that often, so I won't, and,
yeah,
and you're not going to
exactly.
get punished for it, Whereas it felt like in social media for the longest time, you had to post every day, otherwise you'd be punished for it or whatever. Have to
Yeah,
post
like
a
people
certain
would
kind of
immediately
post.
forget about you or something, which honestly, even though like I've never been great with social media, and I can admit that, but
Yeah,
like even if I haven't posted every single day on social media, I gotta say it hasn't really affected how many not how many like how much engagement I get, but like I know that I could have more followers if I posted more, but when I post, like even if it's been months since I posted, I usually still get the same general kind of engagement that I would always get. So
yeah,
I know that like it's not true when they say it's like you're going to disappear if you don't post on social media every single day or whatever. It's like I'm still there. I'm still coming up on people's
yeah,
algorithms. It's just not as consistently as people might like. But like I also don't want a massive I don't need a massive following. I don't it's maybe it's a privilege that I don't need that because I already have a full-time job anyway, so it's like it's not really that beneficial to me.
yeah,
But even for the people who it is beneficial to, I think that there's so much stock put on the consistency of posting and all the content that you have to do and the words that you have to put and the hashtags that you have to do. And I think that I'm wondering how much it even matters because like so many people have been trained to chase a specific kind of method, and that method can literally change on a dime at the whims of a corporation.
yeah,
And so how valuable is that method when it's not even a permanent thing that can work for that long? It's just and you get burned out on it because you're just chasing and chasing and chasing, and there's, like, not really satisfaction in it, which is, like, why I've become jaded with social media in the first place is just because I'm like, I don't feel that same enjoyment that I used to when I when I would post back in the DeviantArt days
yeah,
of, like, I would share my art and, like, 20 people would see it, but everybody was leaving, like, meaningful comments and feedback, and they were like, "Oh my gosh, like, I love this so much," and, like, we would do art trades, and, like, there was, like, a little, like, warm feeling around the community that you would create for yourself. Even if you weren't the most popular artist, you would still have people who were, like, dedicated, like, fans of your work, like, not because you were doing anything special, but just because you're making the art that you make,
yeah,
and I feel like I haven't quite gotten that feeling so much as when I post just in my own communities on Discord, which speaking of channels that I can control, Discord has been like a new place of solace for me. Because like I got to make my own channels where my friends are, and there'll be like 50 people there, and the majority of people who are in the Discord will see your post, and everybody gets feedback, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to share my story, and like people are like, oh my god, like I'm so excited to see this new thing. Then everybody's sharing within each other,
hmm,
and I found that it started to create that warm, fuzzy feeling for me again. That feeling I haven't really had since DeviantArt days. And I'm like, oh, like this is like actively changing because like I don't feel good anymore when posting on social media, not just because there's this algorithm that I have to compete with and there's so much noise to cut through, but also obviously it's like not really safe anymore to post on social media where every single thing that I put online now is subject to be scraped by AI. And not to say that Discord is perfect, because Discord is also kind of using those tools. Like nothing is safe anymore,
Yeah.
probably except for Kara with like the, when it gets Glaze built in. But even still, like, no, a bunch of people are not seeing this. It's just it's the people who I choose to share my art with, and they're not going to be my audience. Like, they're not going to get me sales or anything, but I'm not. It's like it's kind of nice to not have to share for the sake of sales anymore.
Mm.
It's just sharing for the sake of just like, hey, I made something fun. Are you interested? And like it's like, your friends being able to say, yes, I am interested. And that like there's something that feels more special about that.
Yeah.
Not to say that like social media is obsolete completely, even though I do think it's changing, but I do think that like in order to get that same kind of satisfaction, I've noticed a lot of artists feeling the same sentiment.
Well, let's unpack that a little bit because I think for the longest time we've been chasing the likes and the follows, right? And for most of us, it has been for a career, right? Whether you have a full-time job or you're looking for a job or you're looking for sales or looking to build your brand or whatever it is, it was in your best interest to get as many followers as possible, as many likes as possible, but to the point that the number has been another thing to compare yourself, not just the quality of your work now, like that you'd compare your work to other artists, but it's like the number of likes and number of followers and all that stuff, the number of comments or whatever. um
Yeah.
but it's always felt a little shallow, right? Because I feel like it always, I think social media has always felt a bit performative because it
Oh
doesn't,
yeah.
you know but we've gotten used to that performative nature, so it's like you've gotten more used to getting that, just posting it and having very quick response that's either really positive or really disappointing, right? It's very polarizing.
It
and
is.
and then it's just like, I think that especially with the thing you were talking about earlier with all the rules, the cynic in me is like, they're actually building these rules so that we'll be dependent on this and not get bored with their app, so we'll keep coming back and trying to master it, right? You know what I mean? Like they keep changing it so that it'll keep feeling new or different.
Yeah. It's like the
So
goalpost keeps moving though.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I don't
Yeah.
know. I just feel like it's becoming less about the sharing of art, right? It's more about the performance of sharing it. And so when you're talking about building your own community and you're sharing it not for likes or not for follows or money, it is a different experience. It's a very different experience, you know?
Yeah, it
It
is.
it's a different outcome because of that as well. So, and I think both are important. You do need to make a living, but you also need to share art and feed your soul with people who genuinely value it. And those things just are not going to, I think, naturally come from social media. Sometimes it used to, right? But
Yeah.
I think it's like diminishing returns lately when it comes to that.
I think so too. And I think that it doesn't like sharing art in that way, having to be performative and having to like make a long post about it and having to use the hashtags and having to be strategic about how you like post the image and like what you put there and like, oh, zoom in on details or like theme it to, this event. It's all the stuff. A lot of us have changed the way that we make our art to
Mm-hmm.
appease the algorithm rather than making art for like, for ourselves or just like even for the purpose of like, getting money or getting jobs. Like it's become so much more effort than that now,
Mm-hmm.
where we have to activate all these different skills just to like post one piece of art when before we could just make the art and like maybe we have to take it around to like agencies or maybe we have to like give it to like whatever art directors like that were around back then, like in the old school before the internet days, or even before social media was this prominent. But it almost started to feel unnatural in the way that we had to do it
Yeah.
because it's just like, oh, you can't just be an artist. You have to be a social media manager. You have to be a marketer. You have to be a performer. You have to be this like personality. And not everybody wants to be that. And
Right.
not everybody should be that. It's one formula
Yeah.
for so many different diverse personality types. And it doesn't work for so many of us because we're introverts. Like so we just want to make our art. And like in Discord or like back in the DeviantArt days, it felt like I was just making my art. I posted it. I put whatever comments I wanted to put on it. And I was like, "Hey, do y'all like this?" And everybody's like either like, "We like this," or like, "Oh, we have critique." And you could post your art for critique and you could ask if you want to critique or not. So there's a protocol around it. And like, and then you would like you would make actual friends doing this. And it felt like a very safe community because it kind like, you know, like there's always like danger in any kind of like online interaction, but more or less it was like it was kind of safe.
Mhm.
And like now because it's gotten so big and so massive and so gamified, it's become this thing that we can never appease. And so there's a sense of dissatisfaction overall that I've been feeling amongst artists because like there's again the goalposts keep moving. If the goalposts keep moving, there's never any goal that you can reach. It's always like build, 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 build. And not like, oh, like I made this art and I feel good about it and like other people feel good about it and that makes me happy. It never just ends there. It always has to be this whole commodification. And I think that we're getting disenchanted because we're realizing that it's like it's actually taken us away from what we make why we made art in the first place for a lot of us. And it's like, you know, this is not an absolute rule. I know people like Kofi, for example, like really appreciate social media and what it's like done for him to connect him to different communities. But I think for the way that a lot of people have to use social media and have been forced to adjust with it has really created a lot of burnout around it.
Mhm.
And so, and it's definitely been the case for me because like once I stopped posting as much on social media, I actually became a lot happier with my
Yeah,
art.
same,
Yeah. And I
same.
stopped feeling the need to share everything that I made too. Like there's a lot of art that I haven't shared on social media. And I
Mhm.
don't mind. Like I used to be like, oh my God, I have to put every like immediately. It's like it doesn't even give me dopamine anymore. I'm just like, I just want to share this with my friends. Like that'll give me dopamine.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I felt like for the longest time when I had a full-time job, I felt the need to create that it's like just to have something to post. And so I feel like that was the worst. That was probably the most toxic time that when I was literally trying to post something every day and I had a full-time job, I couldn't, but I was
Oh
just
God.
trying to churn anything out and it was not quality art. And I was wondering why it wasn't, connecting. And it's like because you're just trying to feed an algorithm. You're not actually making art that you need to make. And and I think a lot of artists kind of are in that boat where it's like they've become content creators, right? Where it's just like they're just trying to make reels, they're just trying to make daily posts. Like at that point, you
Hmm.
are just creating content. You're not making art anymore because art takes time and it takes intention, and no one can create at that pace. I mean, some
Yeah.
people can maybe, or
Some
they have
people
a
can.
backlog
Like
of
it's
stuff.
crazy how what some people can do. But even like there's so many webcomic artists that I follow. And when they create at a crazy pace where like they're making full pages like every 2 days and they're posting it all the time, like almost always inevitably report back with like either like they're super burned out or they have like an injury.
Yeah.
Because like you're not supposed to make art at that volume all the time. I mean, not supposed to. There's some people who feel compelled to and like they actually want to, which is great for them. But after a certain point, you have to understand how to rest and what that rest looks like for yourself. That you can't be an output machine all the time, especially if you're only doing it to appease the algorithm
Yeah.
and to like, you know, satisfy your followers. Um, you know, like it's like a lot of people who have been like really, really good at the social media game, even then, they've had to step away for months and take breaks because they're like, I can't keep doing this anymore. Because I feel like it takes something from you
Mhm.
to have to do that all the time, especially when it's for this purpose
Yeah.
of feeding that machine that can never be satisfied.
Yeah. It feels almost like the whole AI scraping thing is like punishing the people who did it well. It just feels like it must feel like such a betrayal. I think I actually saw an artist on Facebook mention something about that. It's like it feels even more of a betrayal because it did so much good for me in terms of
Yeah.
me make a living, helping me meet friends and things like that. And yeah, I can definitely see that.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it's honestly crazy about like how AI has taken so much of like we were talking about this offline, but what art gives us and like how it feeds our souls and how it like like creates realizations and how it changes our full lens of how we see the world. And it's taking all that away and just making the end result the thing,
Yeah.
which is honestly, it almost feels like the natural progression of what social media was aiming towards is the end result.
Yeah.
And it's like literally AI is like the worst version of it. It's like it mutated into something awful because like it is the product of everything that has been posted online. And it's like here's the end product. This is what you want. So here's all of it forever scraped off of billions of images off the internet. Like
Yeah.
it's just it's just that without seeing any of the behind the scenes. And the problem with that too is the fact that when we see only the end result, we have no idea, no context to what went into creating that piece. We don't know what the artist struggled with. We don't know what they went through. We don't know how they came to that realization if they're not sharing that. We don't know if they got injured or if they like had an issue with their family or if they had an issue with their friends or like what kind of self-conscious thing. All we're seeing is that end result. And it looks so shiny and beautiful, but and it makes it so easy to envy. And so we're chasing something that is inherently incomplete because these artists, it's and they don't have to be obligated to share anything. Like I'm not and it's not a commentary on them. It's a commentary on what social media makes it look like. And it's like it's not even that with art. It's like with that with like all the fitness people or all the, like the people who like make the beautiful food or like like anything on social media that looks all shiny and polished. It's all about that end result. It's all about the commodification of like, here's the ideal that you should be. Aren't you upset that you're not this?
Yeah.
And it makes all of us feel like shit.
Like
Because
fashion magazines for every aspect of your life and for every
it
career.
is. Yeah,
And
it's
it's
like the
not even
pinnacle of what it
real.
is to be a person. It's like, no, it's not.
It's not real. Yeah, it's basically averages, but also everyone's ideal, and then just
Yeah.
average that out. So it's not even authentic. It's not real. It's carving out all the interesting facets of people and their nuances out of it, and it might
Yeah.
seem more appealing because it's smoothed out, like you said, and kind of shiny or whatever. But it's not. That's what feels so fake and hollow to me about it.
Yeah.
It's like all the stuff, all the imperfections are what make it interesting, but it's all the things we are ashamed of about ourselves in our lives, right? That we think it somehow means it's a personal fault or something. But that's actually the stuff that gives our art meaning. So it's like, to me, the last thing
Exactly.
you want to average out is art, you know?
Exactly. It's like all the struggles, all the weird things that you run into during the process. That's the beautiful thing.
Yeah, the
Like,
specificity to you, to you
yes.
yourself in this moment making this thing. Like, you're not going to find that in volume, and so AI can't create that. It's just, you know what I mean? It's like only one
Yeah.
person living this moment can make that, and it was already orchestrated from within what your output's going to be. So it's not your creation if you're just typing words. Like, someone has engineered what those words will look like, and before you even got there and typed something, so that's not your idea. It's just not.
Yeah, it isn't. It can't be. Like inherently is not your idea
And it's
because
robbing you of what your idea could look like.
exactly, exactly. Literally, I just made a watercolor piece for a gallery, and I haven't done watercolor in years. And throughout this whole process, I was struggling because I haven't worked in this medium. I chose the most fickle medium to work in, but like the process of taping the paper down to my board and and figuring out like, oh yeah, I need to wet the brush again to like make the watercolor spread better. And then I'm like, oh, like I want these like striations because I was making turkey tail mushrooms. I was like, I want these striations to look good. So like, what do I have to do? I was like, okay, I got to go over to Dick Blick and get acrylic paint because it's not going to stand out as much. So I'm like, I'm figuring things out as I'm going, and I'm not sure I'm recording my whole process on Discord with my friends and showing them. I'm like, hey, I'm struggling through this, and they're like, oh my god, it looks amazing, keep going. And it's like it was encouraging me to be like, okay, like I can. This is not nothing, even though this was like nothing right now, but I'm still going and I kept discovering new things. And I was like, "Oh," like, I was like, even going out to Michael's to find the frame that I wanted. I found a frame and I was like, "I think this frame is too big. I'm gonna get a smaller." And I found a weird frame in my house and it was banged up, so I painted the frame. And then and I was like, "Oh, if I have a mat, I can paint the this I was this like a girl with holding like she was holding mushrooms and like her outfit was made out of slime mold. And I was like, "Oh, I can put the slime mold on the mat." Like, "Oh, that's so cool." That I was and I thought about that in the moment and I did like this gold slime mold like across like and it came out and I was really happy with the way it came out. The whole process was a struggle from start to finish and I loved every moment of it. And like that could never have like, no, like AI could never feel that. There's no context with how I arrived at that thing. And so a cool thing happened too when I was actually at the gallery and I saw my piece on the wall there was somebody there who I struck up conversation with, and he was probably flirting with me, I don't know. But I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm actually an artist, so I made a piece here." It was a group show, so it was about probably like 100 pieces. And he was like, "Oh, like," he's like, "I want to guess which piece you did." And he was like, "Just narrow it down for a wall that it's on." It was like each wall had like 40 pieces on it. So I told him what wall it was on, and and he was like, "Okay, I'm gonna figure out which one you did." And he like narrowed it down. He like actually talked out his process of how he was arriving at this decision. And he was like, "Oh, okay." Like he was like, "I thought this piece might be you, but I feel like because of the decisions made here with the colors, this piece over here might be more you." And he ended up landing on the exact piece that I did.
That's awesome.
With like he just met me, he didn't know my name, he didn't know anything about me. He just saw my vibe and who I was, and he was like, "Okay, I'm gonna figure it out based on whatever this is." And he figured it out. And
That's
I
awesome.
think that's the coolest thing ever.
Yeah.
That like that experience could never happen because you can't if you look at AI, you cannot figure out who made that piece because nobody made that piece.
Yeah. And it all looks like it could be anyone or no one or all the same person. And that's the opposite of what you want your art to look like, you know?
Yeah.
But also just what I love about that story too is that that was a person to person interaction over art. And in this day and age with all these devices and social media and things like that, the fact that you can still find someone that is going to engage with you in person about
Yeah.
a piece of art is really cool. And I think that a lot of companies and investors and shareholders and stuff are always looking for like what's next, what's the new thing that everyone's going to be into. And I've always just been like, what are the things that have lasted all this time that we've been on this planet? Like I want to dive it more into that instead of trying to look for more abstracted human simulated ways of connecting. Like can we just connect in the ways that humans have always connected and really invest in those things and make those stronger instead of separating us so much that we have to look for synthetic ways to connect? Like I don't know,
Yeah.
it's just to me
No,
it's like I just want to go back to the roots of things, you know, and the real things and the real connections with people.
yeah, and I think there's been a desire for that, honestly. Especially amongst our generation. Like I don't know how Gen Z and Gen Alpha feels, but as a generation, especially for us who's grown up solely with like not like with our childhoods not being in front of a screen,
Yeah.
like being face to face, being outside, touching grass and like looking under rocks and stuff. Like we know what it was like and what it felt like
Hmm.
to not have all of these distractions in the way of what it meant to be an artist, what it meant to be a friend, what it meant to be a family member. Like it wasn't screens. It was just face to face. You would go to each other's houses, you would be on the street riding bike or whatever. And now the screen has been so, I mean, taken in by capitalism. Human interaction has been taken in by capitalism, where it's like they charge you to just to interact with a human. Like we
Hmm.
need to pay for Zoom, we need to pay for like this Discord Nitro, and like all these things. It's like, or you could just talk to a person for free. That
Yeah.
gallery was free. I
Yeah.
could just go there. You could just roll up and have some food and enjoy yourself. And so like I think there's a pull to go back to that because inherently capitalism is going to take some of the human aspect out of it because yet they must be like charging people for everything.
Hmm.
Everything can be commodified. Everything can be a way to get somebody richer. And when that happens, it's like everything is transactional.
Yeah.
But life isn't meant to be transactional all the time. Sometimes it's just meant to be an experience. And art is the biggest, any kind of art, music, dance, like create like visual arts, anything, cooking. All these things are meant to be experiences that we have, and they're so much better when they're shared with each other. And when we're sharing things to the algorithm, it doesn't feel like you're sharing it with anybody. It could be bots responding for all we know. We don't even know they're real people on the other side of the screen. It's taken away so much of that human aspect that I feel like that's why we're so jaded about it.
Hmm.
Because it's like, oh, we've lost what it means to actually like be a person in this world with a shiny end product, with all the things that we have to do in order to make our art. And then it makes you it reflects on your self-worth. You don't feel like you're valuable if you're not feeding the algorithm, if you don't have a bunch of followers. It's like the amount of followers becomes a part of your worth. Like even I, like as I like talk with some of my friends who have tons of followers, I feel like I'm less than a little bit compared next to them. But when I actually talk to them in person, I'm like, we're peers and we're just hanging out and it's fine. And we admire each other for different reasons.
Yeah.
The followers have nothing to do with it. It's about what we're giving to each other and like how we're making each other feel. We're making each other feel nice and good and like and loved and appreciated because we're each other. It has nothing to do with the algorithm, nothing to do with numbers at all. And I'm hoping that people start to realize that more and more now.
Yeah. And again, that's why I think conventions are more as popular as ever. They're actually kind of a better way to build a following than online because you can't replace that in person feeling of finding, discovering something cool that you've never seen before, and then meeting somebody and they're talking to you about how they made it. Like that sounds like such an outdated way of connecting with people, but it still works for a reason, you know?
Not. Connecting with people is never outdated.
Well, again, it's like tell that to the people who are looking for ways to keep monetizing new experiences or the next thing. It's like, ugh.
Well, the problem is they're trying to tell others. They're trying to tell everybody that it is outdated so that they can make money.
Yeah,
The
exactly.
more they can market that message, the more the people will buy into it.
Yeah.
That's how marketing has always worked. It's like they change culture through marketing, and this is no exception at all. And I think only by the awareness of like being able to push back against it and to start to to change the way that we interact with things, can we push back against that?
Yeah.
Again, not to say that social media is inherently wrong or like that these ways are like, all wrong, but there are more ways to interact than just that. And I'm glad you brought up conventions because I was just at MomoCon and I've noticed profoundly actually that despite everything that's been happening, AI and all this stuff, convention sales have only been getting better.
Mhm.
And I think it harkens back to your point of like that person to person interaction. There's nothing that can replace that. And it's, I was like, I was so scared, like, I was like, oh my God, like, is it going to be like, am I not going to be able to do anything? Like, no, like, even though I'm talking about, selling and like inherently capitalism because we're selling stuff, but we have to survive. Like the fact that I can have conversations with people and they see my art and they want to buy the art. And a lot of times because they had a conversation with me, that feels so much more real than whatever is on social media because it is real.
Yeah.
Because I got to see that person's face. And I'm not lying to them. I'm like, yeah, like, trying to sell my art, of course, but like I'm selling like this is what I am.
Yeah.
And I'm not really putting on a front. I'm just like, "Hey, like, what's up? Like, how you doing?" But I wanna know more about them, and we have a conversation, and, like, something is bought. And every time they buy a journal from me, I ask them, like, "What world are you gonna put in this?"
Oh, that's awesome.
Because they're good but because it's true, like, it's always fun selling practical items because they're using it for something, especially when it goes back into creativity or, like, writing or journaling. Um, that's my favorite thing actually when somebody is actually putting their world into something that has my art on it. It's like my world inspired their world to come to life. That's the coolest thing to me in the world. You
So,
can't get that anywhere else really.
oh yeah,
So
absolutely.
it's just, like it's conventions have been really special. The gallery stuff, I want to do that more because that's really special. But it really has taught me to value and like person to person interactions so much more because like these are communities that like, even if you can't control them completely, you're meeting strangers a lot of the time. It's still like you get to see a live reaction to your art. You get to see what art does for other people. You get to see how people light up and respond and just being humans together.
Yeah.
Curating and cultivating a good community is something that is, I think, invaluable, especially now that like, whatever is on social media, whatever's marketed to us, whatever's shown to us via the algorithm, which is not really our community. It's like a mixture of ads, a mixture of businesses, and then sometimes our friends.
Yeah.
I think that like the future for artists, I think it's going to start looking more like communities that we control.
Yeah.
What do you think it looks like?
I have a couple of thoughts about that. I think the first thing that comes to mind is that Kara app that we just mentioned at the top. That a lot of it was actually started when ArtStation decided to allow AI onto their platforms, or like sort
Yeah.
of protest, alternative portfolio site to ArtStation. And it's been around. I remember I set up a beta account and then I just never posted. Because I was like another thing to keep track of because I did
Yeah.
Blue Sky. I made one post and I never and there's been articles about this, right, where it's like the older people are, the less likely they are to change their app habits, even if it's diminishing returns, whereas younger users will actually be more willing to jump to new things because they don't have as many roots sort of set there, or like all your contacts are in one place and you have a long life and you have a lot of contacts. It's going to be harder to migrate everyone over, so it doesn't feel like it's worth the effort. So I do always see the older artists are always like, no, I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
It's just kind of
It's like, no, another thing to adjust to. Boo.
yeah, yeah. Because it feels like you're taking your whole life over, whereas somebody's younger, it's like, I could just jump over, it's just me and a few things, like a little bit of baggage, right?
Yeah, right.
But
Always.
yeah, and so anyway, Sakara got a big boost recently with those new meta forms, opt-out forms that they're totally not going to respect, even if you were able to
Definitely
fill them
not.
out. the US has worse like data protection laws than Europe, which is complete crap. And so anyway, people were just like, excuse my language, but they're like, screw this.
Yeah.
Screw AI, all this stuff. Like we knew they were scraping our stuff and they've already done it, but the fact that they announced we are doing this and is just so gross. And like that they're just like they just don't care. They feel entitled to it. And so I just feel like there was just that sort of a exodus from Instagram.
Yep.
And they literally went from I don't know how many users to now over 300,000 like, in the
Yep.
past, like 2 or 3 days. And it's like being funded by an artist herself with a very small crew, and everyone's just expecting it to work like Meta, which is a multi-billion-dollar company, you know?
Yeah. And it's like it's
And
not gonna
so
work like that yet.
so I think the interesting thing about communities is that we want them. We want them to be by artists for artists. We want them to be organic. We don't want them to be like grifters that are making money off of us. We want it to be people we trust. We also want it to work well. We want it to work perfectly. We want it to be free. We want it to, and it's just
Yeah.
like I think the expectations we have of our communities are often very high. And I wonder if that's to do with social media, like parasocial relationships and things like that, where we've again that's been we've any of us who've been on social media for over a decade, we've kind of been conditioned to having these sort of fake relationships with people online,
Yeah.
even if we
Absolutely.
even if we've met them in person, but like we mostly know them online. There's a synthetic feeling about that relationship too, right, where we start idealizing the other person or having certain expectations of them, like grandiose expectations. And that's I
Yeah.
guess like that's the other side of my attitude towards communities. I think we need them and we want them, but also we've had so many fallouts, I think, in the art community, especially where it's like people that we put a lot of trust in turned out to be really untrustworthy.
Hmm.
And people who make promises turn out to be grifters and all this kind of stuff. And so, yeah, I don't know what my ending thoughts about that are, aside from that it's complicated because people are complicated.
Yeah.
Um, and we all want to feel like safe, and we want to feel like we're putting our trust in people that aren't going to betray that trust.
Hmm.
And I think that's just the risk anytime with people of either falling in love or making friendships or all that stuff. You're always risking trusting the wrong person and that kind of thing. So I just don't think you can avoid that, you know?
Yeah. Especially when you're in a community. I feel like every community has this not issue because like, it's just an inherent part of community where inevitably drama will unfold because somebody's like, you know, no one's infallible, right?
Yeah.
Like everybody has something going on. So when you're in a community like that, especially when it's online, you have high expectations of people, especially the ones who are like community leaders. And so when you see that community leader going against the values that you thought that they should express, it's always going to be something that's like, oh my God, like what's happening? Like it's like basically your heroes crumbling in front of you.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, it is that parasocial relationship because like everybody like has put them on a pedestal. They think that they're perfect and, it's not to say that, when people get canceled, it's not deserved. Sometimes it is, sometimes it
Yeah.
isn't.
Yeah.
But inevitably that drama will unfold in some way or another. It's like how entrenched you wanna get into it. So there's always a risk there for sure. But, I mean, there's no I don't know if there's a solution around it. It's just like I think it's just something to understand as you get into a new community. It's not gonna be the last time you ever see it. It's gonna happen again and again and again. That's a natural part of communities.
Yeah.
So we can't be surprised. But again, that because that pristine image is being sold to us so long, so often, we expect things to stay pristine, and that's just never the reality. You
Yeah.
can't expect that. But we've been primed, over a decade. Like I've been using Facebook since 2005,
Oh wow.
back when
Yeah. Wow.
back when colleges only were on that platform, like crazy.
It's like MySpace days.
MySpace, like, I posted my and I'm dating myself, I know, but I posted my dorm room number on Facebook because it was literally just the college.
Wow.
Like, that's how tiny and intimate it was, so it changed. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, like, when communities inevitably change and grow, it's like you're gonna run into that stuff, and, like, there's been many people I've unfriended and many people who I'm like, "Oh, I can't, like, follow you anymore," because, like, our values just do not intersect. But yeah, any community that you'll go into, there's gonna be aspects of it that feel like very, very safe. And there's gonna be other aspects of it that are just going to be like, oh, my trust has been betrayed. I don't know if I can trust this whole community anymore. That's that's just a part of the community. It's just like
Yeah.
find your place where you belong and like know that there's gonna be drama and find your allies and find the people who you love and you'll be just fine. But
Yeah.
I think all of us though will be just fine. No matter where we end up landing. What if it's Kara or if it's just Blue Sky or if it's like any other platform or if it's our own Discord communities. But but I do think that the landscape of how we share our art and like and experience our art is just changing rapidly, and it's us having to adjust. And I do appreciate Zamotion, Zingna. Wait, I don't know. I don't want to mispronounce her name, but I know her name is Zamotion. Um, I do appreciate her for taking action after her art has been stolen. And actually she won the case against the plagiarism against her art against the painter who literally repainted one of her photographs.
Yeah.
And it's basically the exact same thing, and she actually won that case. So it creates a good precedent for being able to own your own art and having copyright. So yay, congratulations, Emotion. I'm glad you won. But she made that platform as a way to escape all of that. And with those integrations built in, it's going to be a really good boon for artists. So I'm hoping that it does take off, and I'm hoping that does become a positive community for all of us. I will say also, as an art director, really great to have a platform completely dedicated to artists makes my job way easier.
Yeah.
Thank God.
Yes, yes. You know how refreshing it was to just scroll through and not see ads, not see suggested crap. It's just art, and it's all amazing art, and there's no AI, and it's just amazing.
Yes, I love it. I'm like, oh, I need to find an artist who does this today. I'm just gonna go on my feed and scroll until I find one. It's great. Oh, it's so much easier than having to cut through all the noise because it used to be Pinterest for me. Pinterest has been taken over by I can't use it anymore. Taken over by AI. I'm like, oh, is that cut paper? No, it's fake. I can't use that at all. It's useless to me. So Kara having all artists, no AI, fantastic. So I really appreciate it for that reason too. This didn't I didn't mean to be have this become an ad for Kara, and it's not, but it's like it's something that I do feel like I'm very happy to see it again. And it does remind me of DeviantArt again. Um, an app that like I know it's made by artists for artists, so it's
Yeah.
less likely for it to sell out. And I'm hoping that it stays that way.
Yeah, and the reason why I brought it up in the first place was because I feel like everybody is very overly critical when something new comes up about whether you should invest your time into it. And I completely understand why, for all your different reasons. But I think it's just kind of unfair to expect it to be this perfect be all end all thing when at its
Yeah.
infancy. It's like where any of these sites we're using now, they're in their infancy. And if you want this place to thrive and become better, then you have to contribute to it. You can't just throw rocks at it, you know? So
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's just that it's like we always say we want community artist led thing, and this is one of those things that's trying to do that. So you need different kinds of people to come together, different personalities to make a thing. And I think that artists need to find our power within ourselves, whether that's a site like this or in the future releasing our own content, making our own things together instead of relying on studios and that are all going to go towards AI. I think we're just
Yeah.
gonna have to learn how to work together and trust each other, and maybe sometimes work with people that we don't necessarily like in every way or agree with in every aspect. But that's what communities are about too, right? It's about all of
100%.
that stuff.
It's
So
like be the change that you want to see. It's like if you want to see that change and you want an artist-led platform, support it. Share it. Like talk about it. Like if it's like if it's something that you want to see, then like I think that the best you can do is like, to promote it and like to do your best with like migrating to it. If you're gonna migrate from Instagram and from Meta, then do so. It's totally fine. If you want to stay on it, that's totally fine too. It's up to you how you want to live your life and like what you do. But don't don't put things down when like people are trying, especially when like it's like a thing that like feels safe and it's something that we need and it's like the only thing of its type that is providing protections for us. It's like at the very least, like let's try to support it. So I
yeah,
think it's very important to have something for us like that. How can we make it better? Yeah, feedback is important, but also like what are you doing? What in your
yeah,
part? Are you just being are you just being negative or are you trying to make change too?
mm-hmm.
So yeah, but all that being said, I hope that we all find our communities in which we belong. And I hope that wherever we land, it looks even better than where we ended up. Because I think all of the stuff that's happening now is a product of social media and what it's been. And this is the perfect opportunity to start to address the imperfections of social media and the ways that it makes us feel, and it's another step towards becoming more of our authentic artist selves in the ways that we prefer to share our work and the way that we prefer to engage with other artists and just the world in general. And it's like it's interesting because with something that's so disempowering like AI is actually empowered us to create our own path and to break away from the things that we thought were going to be the absolute truths forever. It's not the case. It never is the case. Nothing's ever permanent. And you know, this is our time to really shine and to really create something for ourselves. So go forth sharing your beautiful work and however you want to do it, and keep yourself safe and protect yourself. I can't wait to see what y'all share. Thanks y'all so much for watching. If you want to support this show, please go ahead and smash that like button, hit that subscribe. Speaking of social media, YouTube is one of them.
Yeah.
Well, oh well. You have to do what you can, right? We live in a society, don't we? So, but we are tiny. This is free for y'all to watch. So if you want to support us, please feel free to do so. If you want to join the discourse, free feel free to join our live episodes. If you subscribe, you will see when we're going to air a new episode. We may not be exactly bi-weekly right now. We are extremely busy this year, especially. Me is in the middle of a massive project. I'm in the middle of traveling to every place in the world, apparently. I don't know what that's all about. Eric is in the middle of doing a bunch of stuff and being a dad and also being an owner of a pet, which is crazy.
Yeah.
And also just being an illustrator and being super busy and talented. So, you know, thank you so much for your patience and thank you for joining when you can. We are trying our best to keep updating regularly, but again, we need a break and we're doing it at our own pace so that we don't burn out, just like we should when you're dealing with social media. So follow our example and do things at your own pace. That's the moral of the story, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
not. Do whatever you want. But you can also join the discourse on the Painted in Color podcast discussion group on Facebook if you're on Facebook, and you know, post questions or whatever you want there. But hopefully you're encouraged by this episode to just like seek your own communities, and we'll catch you at the next one. Talk to you later. Bye everybody. I'll do one for Eric.